Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So I thought I would take a break from critiquing the Megzy and the Harry, and I wanted to cover this guy called Jerry Seinfeld. He is an American comedian, and he said a few comments which got people quite upset and irate in the New York Times. So he penned an open letter for the New York Times regarding his love for New York and his thoughts and feelings on people fleeing New York to go to different states. Now, I know that New York has been hard hit by the pandemic along with every other major capital city. London has been hard hit. Our footfall is a tenth of what it normally is. It's not like what it normally was. It used to be filled with tourists and people sightseeing, taking pictures, shopping, eating, laughing. All of that is come to a standstill, and there's about a tenth of the people doing that, which is nice. I guess it's nice to be able to cross the street without having 100 people either side of you. Anyway, I've never actually been to New York. It was definitely on my to-do list, and I can't wait to go there, especially after this whole thing is over. And what people have been saying is that New York's dead and it's not going to be able to recover from the pandemic. I personally don't agree with that. I think that once the capital city has been established for such a long time, I think we will get back to how we used to live. It's just going to take a while. It probably won't be an overnight recovery, but it's definitely going to happen. Anyway, people are upset because in his open letter, he didn't exactly address all of the reasons as to why people are leaving. Now, a lot of people are leaving. Us normal people would be leaving New York and major cities because they simply can't afford to be there because they've lost their jobs. He didn't go into that. He just made it sound as though they've made a choice to leave simply because they have given up on the city and it hasn't got that energy anymore and it hasn't got that atmosphere and vibe anymore, and they was making a choice to be there. They can still afford to be there, which is not the case. So his open letter was titled, "So You Think New York is Dead?" And he said, "When I got my first apartment in Manhattan in the hot summer of 1976, there was no pooper scooper law and the streets were covered in dog crap. I signed the rental agreement, walked outside and my car had been towed. I still thought this is the greatest place I've ever been in my life. Manhattan is an island off the coast of America. Are we a part of the United States? Kind of. And this is one of the toughest times we've had in quite a while. But one thing I know for sure, the last thing we need in the thick of so many challenges is some putts on LinkedIn wailing and whimpering, everyone's gone, I want 2019 back." So he was responding to a comment that he saw on LinkedIn, and he goes on to say, "Oh, shut up. Imagine being in a real war with this guy by your side. Listening to him go, I used to play chess all day. I could meet people. I could start any type of business. Wipe your tears, wipe your butt, and pull it together." So he has this very much detached, frosty vibe, nonchalant vibe in what this guy is saying. He's responded in quite a cold way. And he goes on to say he knows people who have left New York for Maine, Vermont, Tennessee, Indiana. "I've been to all of these places many, many, many times over many, many decades. And with all due respect and affection, are you kidding me?" So he's basically saying that he would never ever leave New York and it doesn't compare to any other place, which I imagine it wouldn't, because it's the Big Apple, it's the capital, it's a landmark that everybody wants to go to at least once in a lifetime. He says, "Everyone's gone for good. How the hell do you know that? You moved to Miami. Yes, I also have a place out on Long Island, but I will never abandon New York City ever. ... Now, word on the street is that Jerry Seinfeld is actually quarantined up in some fancy mansion in the Hamptons, and what people are saying is that how dare he say that he would never ever leave New York when he has technically speaking left. These celebrities have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 homes, and it's just the hypocrisy of it all. He's saying to people that they should never leave New York, yet him himself, yeah, he has a place. He hasn't sold his property in New York, and I'm sure that he will go back when the pandemic is cleared up. But he's not there. He's not suffering there. So then he carries on to say, and I have been on stage at your comedy club stand up quite a few times. It could use a little sprucing up, if you don't mind my saying. I wouldn't worry about it. You can do it from Miami. There's some other stupid thing in the article about bandwidth and how New York is over because everybody will remote everything. Guess what? Everyone hates to do this. Everyone hates. You know why? There's no energy. Energy, attitude, and personality cannot be remoted through even the best fiber optic lines, which is true. You can't virtually have interactions with the whole world through a computer. I don't think that the pandemic is the ending of human interaction or the way in which, or the high street, to be honest. That's the whole reason many of us moved to New York in the first place, which I imagine is true. So he carries on to talk about Silicon Valley and why Silicon Valley exists and why everyone moves to Silicon Valley to start a tech company, even though everything's meant to be virtual because of the community vibe there. And then he finishes up saying, you found a place in Florida, fine. We know the sharp focus and restless, resilient, creative spirit that Florida is all about. You think Rome is going away too? London, Tokyo, the East Village, they're not. They change, they mutate, they reform because greatness is rare and the true greatness that is New York City is beyond rare. It's unknown any place outside of New York City. You say New York will not bounce back this time. You will not bounce back in your inadverted pastel-filled new life in Florida. I hope you have a long, healthy run down there. I can't think of a more fitting retribution for your fine article. This stupid virus will give up eventually the same way you have. And he pretty much ends it here. And someone left a comment and they said what a lot of people are saying, and 880 people have liked this comment, 40 people have responded. And it's from a lady called Lola, and she said, okay, you seem out of touch, much like your character on the Jerry Seinfeld show. I've personally never watched it. It's a confession of mine. Then she goes on to say, New York is for the rich. Gentrifiers have pushed black and brown people so far out, they have nowhere else to go or work. Regular working class folks can't find work, let alone pay their rent bills and put food on the table. The New York I grew up in was racially and economically mixed. That was the spirit of New York. That is where the energy came from. I, like many Northerners, moved to Florida to care for my aging parents, and I agree with you. Florida has no pulse, but in my humble opinion, New York died a long time ago. There's no energy when everything's homogenous. So she's slamming him in her commentary, and she's basically saying that he's talking of a passé New York, and of course someone like him doesn't have to give up their New York that they love because they can more than likely afford it. And it seems to be a running theme with these celebrities. They have definitely lost touch with the regular common folk who consume their content and see them in these new media publications. They just don't understand how having money really changes your viewpoint on the world, and you are essentially looking at the world through rose-tinted glasses. So another guy actually said, and he's called Dan, he said, there are as many New Yorks as there are people who live there. Say what you want about New York's greatness, but the city looks completely different to those who use 60% of their income to pay the rent. And 1,546 people actually liked this comment, and I imagine it is true. I've heard that renting in New York is extremely expensive, and it's the same in the capital of London. Renting in central London is extremely expensive, and a lot of people are literally just working to cover the rent, and they don't have much money left over for little else. So people are obviously upset, and I think that it's been a clash of the common man against the celebrities and those who are extremely wealthy and privileged. We're both looking at the pandemic through a completely different lens. On the one hand, the celebrities are literally waiting for the pandemic to clear so they can get back to their playtime. On the other hand, the average people have lost their jobs. A lot of people have been furloughed, they've been made redundant, and they're wondering how they're going to pay the rent, how they're going to keep a roof over their head, how they're going to put food on the table for their children. And it's just two completely different worlds that simply don't understand each other. And I think that there is definitely a big issue nowadays with celebrities weighing in on what it is to be a person during a pandemic, and their experience is just very dissimilar to that of a person who doesn't have much money and who is not fabulously wealthy. And some guy actually said this. So a guy called Billy Walker commented, "With all due respect, Jerry, being fabulously wealthy means you live in a whole different reality. I don't know how you dismiss the collapse of the entire hospitality industry without understanding how important it is across numerous demographic groups." And 1,626 people liked that. That's pretty much end of this video, guys. I think that I don't know. I'm not a fan of the guy, but I don't completely disagree with what he said. But I can see where people have gotten upset and where people are pretty irate with what he said. I don't think he said anything particularly extremely offensive, but I do think that there was a lack of regard for those who are leaving simply because they can't afford to live there anymore. I know this is not someone who I usually cover, but I thought it would be interesting to bring your attention to different characters. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go and I'll be back for another video. Bye, guys.